cash on delivery, for example, right? A lot of people think cash on delivery is a problem in the Indian ecosystem. Of course, it is higher cost than if you get someone to prepay for your order. But why do people cash on delivery? The common answer you would hear is it's a trust issue. Okay. But when it arrives, I will pay by UPI. So it is not about the cash per se. It is the credit of the COD option that customers actually value. She told us, very interestingly, she said कि हम लोग मोहल्ले वाले लोग हैं, और आप लोग कॉलोनी वाले लोग हो. So that's how they, in their minds, differentiate, right? So she said, I want to wear the baggy jeans, I want to wear the crop top. तो मैं फिर एक जैकेट पहन लेती हूँ और एक स्टोल कर लेती हूँ. जब नेबरहुड से थोड़ा दूर जाती हूँ अपने मोहल्ले से, फिर वो उतार लेती हूँ. So this customer is actually not limited by mindset or by choice. They're limited by their neighborhood. And we were solving for the wrong problem all this while. It is not limited by the catalog. So showing them a more conservative catalog and thinking this is what will go for them, I think that's the biggest mistake. Snapdeal in the past used to be selling everything to everyone when it started.
Yes.
As a horizontal e-commerce player.
Correct.
Over time, through multiple pivots, what we figured out is that sustainable value never gets created by doing everything for everyone. We are very particular about the product ratings, the customer experience feedback coming through our customer care centers, and we have a very high threshold bar.
Okay.
Any seller who falls below that threshold gets delisted immediately from the platform.
Oh,
automatic.
Okay.
It's an algo. We don't even touch it, right? So our sellers know कि Snapdeal पे अगर quality खराब हो गई या experience खराब हो गया, कल हमारी inventory दिखेगी नहीं यहाँ पे. I'll go back to something I learned at McKinsey.
Okay.
About building trust with clients. I think the same philosophy applies here also.
Right.
It's a very simple equation. It's a mathematical equation of trust. It goes as follows. It's trust is equal to credibility multiplied by reliability multiplied by intimacy divided by self-orientation. Customers don't like to be adored, or they may not really want to be adored, but they hate to be fooled, right? So things like handling charges put at the cart as a surprise, a delivery fee not shown in the product price but put at the cart as a surprise. This is what customers hate. Now that's the other interesting part about this customer is they may not recall what do you call this thing, this trend or this product, but they know the imagery. So they want to use the imagery to search. I think the journeys of typing, clicking, and going through each product to be able to understand and buy will transform to a lot more of AI-supported, AI-enabled conversational search, in my view. And that would be far more native for a lot of vernacular customers at scale, which I think would unlock the next 300 million customers. So the 200 to 250 million customers that we have gained in last 20 years in e-commerce, imagine this number doubling in the next 5 years.
Wow.
That is the opportunity we are sitting on.
Hello and welcome to MVP The Master's Voice podcast. I'm your host and friend Pavanar Chawla, founder editor of MediaBrief.com, and I'm delighted to share that joining me on this episode today is Achint Sethia, CEO of Snapdeal. A fantastic person. Achint brings rich experience across consulting, marketing, growth, and e-commerce businesses, having worked across organizations including McKinsey, Myntra, Zalora. So at Snapdeal, Achint is closely focused on understanding Bharat consumers, value-led commerce, and how the next wave of India's digital shopping growth is emerging beyond the metros. Achint, welcome to the show. Welcome to MVP The Master's Voice podcast. And thank you ever so much for your time.
Thank you so much, Pawan. It's been a pleasure to be on your show.
Very kind of you to say that. And really, I mean, we flew down from Mumbai to your office here in Gurgaon, and
Thank you
you've
for
been
coming.
a gracious host. No, I had to come because Snapdeal, of course, is part of, of my, let's say, motor memory. But now you are completely sort of going afresh about the approach to this wonderful brand. So we'll talk about that and much more. But also thanks, Achint, to four people actually. There's Anjali Berry and her teammates Sakshi Ratwa and Shweta Jain of AdFactors PR, and young Saksham, who's been fantastic, been with us throughout in all our preps. So you are in great comms hands. Now, Achint, this promises to be a very interesting conversation because it's not just about Snapdeal or e-commerce. It is also about Bharat consumers changing aspirations beyond the metros, value-driven shopping behavior, digital trust, and how the next phase of India's e-commerce or growth story is evolving. And through initiatives like, Bharat Manthan, right? You and your team at Snapdeal are actually traveling across India and speaking directly to consumers and to sellers instead of depending only on data dashboards and, really literally middle people. So before we speak about Snapdeal and Bharat consumers, Achint, let me ask you to briefly tell our audiences about your own professional journey. You've worked across consulting, marketing, growth, and e-commerce businesses, including McKinsey, Myntra, Zalora, Viacom18, and now Snapdeal. So tell us in under a minute or two about your journey so far.
So I think it's been nearly 2 decades. I've been working. In fact, I started my career with Microsoft as a software coder and used to code for the Windows operating system.
My God.
From there, I jumped into the business consulting side, learned strategy and business transformation building for many years with McKinsey. My next experience, my next pit stop was Viacom18, heading their strategy, business development. And I think this was also the period when the country was starting to go through the transformation of television to OTT. So I was part of the early stages of development of OTT ecosystem and OTT app. We launched Woot at that time, which now is part of JioStar. And then I think from there, when I got some really good taste of the consumer ecosystems and the media ecosystem, being a techie, I wanted to jump back to technology, but not leave the consumer side of it. And somehow e-commerce became the solid combination of the two.
Yeah.
So that's when my e-commerce journey started. First with Myntra in Bangalore and then with Zalora in Singapore. And both of them were very interesting experiences where I learned growth marketing at scale, learned brand building at scale, and most importantly, how the digital ecosystem is shaping the influences of the customers today. Snapdeal, in a way, has been a culmination of all those experiences together. And I think I feel like I'm living each of them now in my role currently.
Lovely. In fact, you preempted my next question. But before I come to the next question, Achint, you mentioned that those were the days when the movement from television to OTT was happening.
Right.
I don't think that will ever be completely done. My view is that it's definitely linear and digital.
It is
Of
both.
course, digital is growing now.
Right.
And just that little thought I wanted to share with you.
I agree.
Okay, now let me come to one question which I always love to ask, and young veterans like you, to aur bhi maza aata hai puch ke. What are 2 or 3 professional experiences that most shaped how you think about leadership, consumers, and business growth today? Long question.
Yeah, I think the first one I would say is McKinsey for sure, because that is when I got my hands-on training on deconstructing problem statements. I was fortunate to work across 18 different sectors, from oil and gas to infrastructure to telecom, media, a bunch of them. And somehow, it teaches you how to find common patterns on how to break a problem and solve it. So that learning sort of went with me in my next memorable experience, which was media. I think media I must say, was one of my favorite experiences.
Why was that?
I'm a creative person at heart.
Okay.
I'm a theater professional. I also like to do short films. And I think that's where my business side and my creative side came together. So I had a lot of fun there. But most importantly, the learning was, through the platforms like Colors and the regional channels, we got to go deeper into the consumer psyche of this country and understand how media really influences, how it shapes the thinking of consumers, and how they use media as a platform to also live up to their aspirations. Right. So that was a big learning for me. And that's when my keen interest in the consumer sector started from there on. The next one I would say was a combination of both Myntra and Zalora, where, building a digital ecosystem at scale, and also concepts like consumer loyalty, concepts like social commerce. I think some of these things I got to do hands-on. And that was fantastic learning to be able to apply some of those theoretical principles into action and then see the results at scale. So these three, I would say, are my shaping career.
Lovely. A techie at heart, a creative person in the soul.
Yes.
And then you have, the coder and the other aspects of all of that. But then your pulse is on the consumer.
Yeah.
It was always more of, enabling a business to connect with the consumer and then learn back from them. So what a great mix of data and the whole churn around everything. But eventually it's the consumer that you're also always focused on.
Right.
Right. Which brings me to this wonderful company called Snapdeal. I'm saying it as if I've just heard about it. It's been it's been a company that I've been using products from, buying from. So Achint, you stepped into the role of CEO at Snapdeal. Since I was just talking about consumers, that brings this question to mind. You stepped into the role of CEO at Snapdeal at a time when the company had already gone through several, reinventions and phases of evolution and iteration.
Right.
What, and I'm exaggerating to say that, but nevertheless, what excited you most about this opportunity, Achint? And what did you believe Snapdeal could uniquely solve in, India's e-commerce landscape?
No, I think it's an important question for me also personally when I heard about this opportunity. And the answer to that for me was the contrarian bet that Snapdeal had taken.
Lovely.
So for all my experience I've seen in e-commerce, and even today when you look at quick commerce, like a large part of the attention of the economy is going after the urban, affluent, semi-affluent customers across the country. Most of the business comes from, the top few cities, essentially.
Great.
But then there is a large India sitting,
Bharat.
the Bharat that we say, which is equally aspirational, but that gets the leftover attention, the leftover marketing, the leftover assortment, and probably everything after every urban consumer has been met and served. And this is a very, very large base of customers, which Snapdeal actually started to tap, had shown early success with. And when they repivoted a couple of years ago into categories like fashion and lifestyle, I think it became very clear that this opportunity can be massive. That personally excited me, that we can actually solve a problem, a real problem for a customer base that hasn't been served to that extent. On the other side, what excited me was working with the MSME community at scale and in a way contribute personally to the Make in India story, right? So all these seller ecosystems that we have in India, they are fledgling entrepreneurs who are trying to come online and build scalable businesses. And some of them may become Indian national brands and global brands in the future. So can we be part of that journey as well?
So you are empowering the whole ecosystem out here. And I think it also reflects on or tells us about the kind of commitment that Snapdeal and its parent have. Because eventually what happens is when you go and look at the back of Beyond,
Right.
there are logistical problems, there are infrastructural, let's say opportunities, I won't call them challenges. And they do need, perhaps much greater investment.
Right.
From the purpose of the company, and you're a purpose-driven entity at heart, and at parent level.
Ace Vector. Yeah.
That's one. And then, it's that much more that is required. So wonderful. Very, very interesting. So Achint, Snapdeal has seen multiple phases, it's gone through multiple phases since its launch. And it continues to remain relevant in a very competitive e-commerce ecosystem.
Right.
And from what you just told me, I understand your vision and perhaps your strategic approach to the future, the near and the longer term future, right? You're actually helping build the MSMEs across and perhaps even educating them about the ways of using internet, e-commerce, to sort of grow their businesses. So How has the company evolved over the years?
Mm.
I mean, when you came in, you knew about it and
Right.
you learned more. And where do you see the biggest growth opportunities? You already told me that it's the back of Beyond. I'm exaggerating again to make a point for Snapdeal in India today. And what is your long-term vision for its next phase of growth? Obviously, you'll go with the major metros and, of course, the rest of it. But
Yeah.
what is your balance going to be like in terms of?
Yeah. No, I think if I look at the customer first, customer backwards opportunity, it's important to understand who we are serving.
Correct.
Snapdeal in the past used to be selling everything to everyone when it started
Yes.
as a horizontal e-commerce player.
Correct.
Over time, through multiple pivots, what we figured out is that sustainable value never gets created by doing everything for everyone. Right?
Wonderful. I
it's-
must repeat that. Sustainable value never gets created by doing everything for everyone. Absolutely.
And that's when I think this whole realization through experiments, of course, retrospectively came that the customer base, which we called as a Bharat customer base, that's a 200 to 250 million large customer base in the country, waiting to be served in a focused manner. What is this customer base looking for? They're looking for affordability, reliability, and fashionability. And when I say fashionability specifically, is because I'm also further segregating that customer base between people who are aspirational, who want to be up on trends, who want to represent their personalities through their shopping choices. Right? And that I think is a very critical opportunity because the customer is daily getting trained and getting aware from the social media trends that they see. They have access to a lot of these assortment, these merchandise to the platforms that are now there. And somehow someone needs to come and solve that gap end to end for them. We thought this was a big opportunity for us. And we had this chance to reliably, in a trusted manner, and through a lot of trendiness, serve this customer. And that also brings us to our vision, right? We want to be the go-to shopping destination for this Bharat shopper when they seek trends, when they seek affordability, when they seek value, most importantly.
Wonderful. When they seek value. So it's all about, and you often speak about value conscious consumers,
Right.
rather than merely price conscious ones. So explain that distinction for us. You did spell it out a little bit here, but if I were to ask you to give me a very, very short description of that distinction between value conscious and price conscious consumers.
Sure.
And because, it says a lot about how India's, whole ecosystem on retail itself is evolving.
Yeah. Price conscious customer asks one question: what is the lowest price? A value conscious customer asks a longer question. It is not just a price, it is the value of my time. It is the value of the total cost of owning something and the value of not going wrong, right? So let me explain each of them. I think the price is straightforward, but let me illustrate with an example, right? You buy a 200 rupee t-shirt, looks good, but pretty low on quality. And you know that it won't run beyond 2 or 3 washes or maybe 5, 6 washes. Maybe it'll completely be unusable after a couple of months. So you need to buy 6 of them at 200 rupees. Now, a price-conscious customer will go ahead and buy it. At that point in time, it is the cheapest decision to make. A value-conscious customer will say, I'll rather buy a 350 one because I only have to buy it twice and I spend 700 rupees in the full year versus 1200 rupees, right? Now, this is a mental leisure that runs in the customer's mind as a true value seeker. The second thing is, I need to be up on trend. I can't go in my circle and say, oh, this was worn like 6 months ago or this is already out of shape, right? And this is the other piece that a value-conscious customer, especially an aspirational one, looks forward to, right? So this combination of price, the trendiness, and also the long-term ownership cost of a product is what a value-conscious customer separates themselves from a price-conscious.
Wonderful. Fashionability also, which is reliable.
Yes, which is reliable.
But then at the back of it all is that not just Indian, but anywhere you go to, any consumer mindset across the world, they do look at the price also, because here it's paying a little more in price, but then he's saving overall, and the convenience of owning it and being very much in or perhaps in
conversations.
lockstep with
Yeah.
the times,
Yeah.
or even ahead of it all.
Yeah.
Very
Customers feel very good when someone asks, "ये कहाँ से लिया आपने?" And that's what they're seeking for in every purchase.
Right. Perfect. Very good. Actually, one of the most interesting aspects of Bharat Manthan is that it takes leadership physically into markets instead of depending only on dashboards and analytics and, like you said, data,
Yeah.
right? Which is important. What have been some of the most surprising insights emerging from these travels of yours and your companies across smaller towns and cities?
There are many actually. I mean, when we go and sit with the customers, just observing them, how they browse the app itself gives you so many perspectives on what a good product looks like for an Indian Bharat customer. Right? But some insights particularly, if I were to mention one, is cash on delivery, for example, right? A lot of people think cash on delivery is a problem in the Indian ecosystem. Of course, it is higher cost than if you get someone to prepay for your order. But why do people cash on delivery? The common answer you would hear is it's a trust issue. But we heard something even more interesting, which is something we know intuitively, but it doesn't come explicitly. We know India is a credit market, right? In the sense people want to take credit for a purchase and pay it later, right? But credit card penetration is very poor in India. So when I see something as a shopper, when I see something is interesting and I really like it, I want to buy it. I also know that it may go out of stock in 2 days. There's a sale on. I want to buy it now, but I know I have 4 to 5 days to arrange for the money by the time it arrives to me. This is cash on delivery.
Lovely.
But when it arrives, I will pay by UPI. So it is not about the cash per se. It is the credit of the COD option
Correct.
that customers actually value.
Right. If you ask me, I often prefer cash on delivery from platforms which are notorious for being a little late in coming to you with the product. Cash on delivery, pehle is pe jao. And they will not deliver. So we tried, there was nobody at home. I hear a lot of nonsense sometimes.
Yeah.
Bad word to use. Everybody has problems and circumstances. But still. So, interesting. Very, very interesting. In fact, you could well collate all these insights and, sort of...
We do. We have a Bharat Manthan series going on. Of course, some of them are very core to our business. So we don't want to also put everything out of over there.
Obviously.
But in the way we shape our product experiences, in the way we think about the business model retuning for our sellers as well as customers. By the way, this Bharat Manthan is not just for customers. We talk to a lot of our sellers. We sit with them. In fact, I do something similar that you're doing with me, with our sellers, called the Gully to Glory podcast. And the idea there again is to hear their stories of fame, starting from the street to where they have gotten to, and how they have also transformed from being an offline-only player to an online player. In fact, a recent seller survey report told us that more than two-thirds now call themselves an online sellers. And a lot of them used to be all wholesale sellers in the past. So that's been the transformation in the ecosystem that is happening. Because sitting in Surat, sitting in Coimbatore, now you can actually reach a customer in Jammu and Kashmir or in Nagaland and still being able to serve them well, because some of the trend understandings are universal now.
Yes.
And that's, I think, some of the true insights we keep educating our sellers also on. Is you don't need to be restricted to your geography. From your mindset perspective, you have the entire nation as a playground for you.
Achint, everyone is speaking about the next 200 to 250 million, as you mentioned, online shoppers. But who exactly is this Bharat customer today, this consumer today? How are their aspirations, buying behavior and digital habits evolving? You did mention the value consciousness.
Right.
But if you want to speak about any trends in terms of their aspirations, buying behavior and digital habits.
Yeah. So think of this customer base as the one which came into the ecosystem post-pandemic.
Okay.
So it's relatively early, 5 years old, give or take, versus the rest of the top 50 to 70 million who were there since the last 2 decades. So they are younger in digital e-commerce. Second, I think if you look at their, when I talk about Bharat customers, if you look at their household income somewhere between 5 to 10 lakhs range. So they have some discretionary power of spending, but they are not still fully secure, right? So they make their choices very carefully. This customer also, who are these people like? They could be your gig workers. They could be your early jobbers in entry-level job, your bank employees, government bank employees, school teachers, right? Folks like these. They also have, a large section of them also have physical access to the urban affluent. So they can see and experience what aspiration looks like.
Right.
The ones who are in tier 3, tier 4 towns who don't have physical access, they have the social access. So all of them are very well educated in terms of what latest trends are, what ambition means when it comes to materialistic pleasures, for example. Okay. And therefore, they also have that yearning. What comes in the way is affordability and reliability.
Correct.
So there is a set of there is a set of propositions which are ultra low price but very inconsistent in quality. Then there are a set of propositions which are branded, premium, expensive. Brands provide consistency of quality, right? But it goes outside their budget zone. They seek value with consistency and that trendiness of the brand.
In the healthy middle.
And that is the middle, what they seek, right? This is, if I look at fashion, for example, from a price point perspective, these would be people who are buying between 300 rupees to 800 rupees price points, right? Not ultra low, not ultra high. And that, I think, is a very large opportunity that we see in this market. And that's also not just growing, but disproportionately multiplying. Now, now the other interesting thing is, even some of the premium customers, for their fashion choices, there is a percentage of their fashion choices when they go to the value commerce, right? Let me buy this for now while I'll buy that expensive bag so that my overall budget is maintained.
Correct.
So, and therefore, we don't break this opportunity between only a customer class or a city tier class. It is the psychology of the customer that we are going after. And that, I think, is an Indian psychology at its heart.
Well said, well said. So what is your stated marketing kind of approach in terms of what are we going to speak about and reiterate about Snapdeal, its value delivery, its convenience, its everything, variety and all of that. So how do you sort of guide your marketing people to approach that and communicate that? What do they communicate?
Absolutely. I think, as I mentioned in the beginning, it has to be around these three pillars of being affordable, being trusted and reliable, and also consistent, therefore. And third is being fashion forward.
Fashion forward.
Right? Today, 90% of our business comes from fashion and lifestyle, which used to be a much smaller proportion 10 years ago when Snapdeal was in a very different avatar.
Yes.
And that sort of sharp positioning is what we are currently focusing on.
And how are your consumers in the, tier 2 and 3 markets and even the fourth? How are they responding? How many repeat buyers do you have? It's also a function of the kind of money they have, of course. Right. But nevertheless, what do you see in terms of acceptance, in terms of word of mouth, in terms of the growth, even though it might be more arithmetical than geometric because it's the kind of place it is?
Yeah.
That market.
No, I think that is, in a way, the mirror of your hypothesis, the growth that you're getting.
Yes.
So we are very happy with the way the customers have responded to this proposition. In fact, in the last 7 quarters, we have seen our business double. 80% plus of our business today comes from our repeat buyers.
Wonderful.
So customers are coming repeatedly.
Even in the sort of remoter markets?
83% of our business is outside metros.
Wonderful.
So
fabulous.
You combine these three, I think you can see that we are getting that smaller town customer, the Bharat customer. At the same time, they're coming repeatedly. And the sharper we are becoming fashion focused, trend focused, I think this customer is enjoying their repeat purchases with us.
So, there's a lot of learning, I think, over there for marketers and others today who, some sitting in metros, still tend to stereotype non-metro consumers, So in your experience, Sachin, what are some of the biggest myths about Bharat consumers that brands and agencies continue to get wrong?
Yeah. I think not everybody gets it wrong, but I often hear these...
Some of them,
them actually, is to assume that the Bharat customer is asking for anything less. So that is the biggest myth I see, that they are less aspirational, or they are less ambitious, or they are less important in the larger economic ecosystem than the urban customer.
Okay.
Right. Now, I'll also illustrate with a little bit of an example. A story that I saw myself. I heard from one of the young girls in Amritsar who we met. She told us, very interestingly, she said कि हम लोग मोहल्ले वाले लोग हैं, और आप लोग कॉलोनी वाले लोग हो. So that's how they, in their minds, differentiate, right? Colony wale log, they have a lot of independence because they don't poke into each other's, neighbors.
Yeah.
कि आप क्या कर रहे हो, where are you going, what are you wearing, क्या चल रहा है आपके घर में.
Walled gardens without the walls.
Exactly, right? There are pros and cons of that.
Yeah.
But मोहल्ले वाले लोग में everybody knows what's going on in the others' lives.
सबका बैंक बैलेंस भी पता होता है.
Exactly. In fact, हम जब किसी का इंटरव्यू कर रहे थे, there was a guy whose mother was sending him again and again to say कि आपकी डिलीवरी आई है, but actually they wanted to check out कि घर में चल क्या रहा है. So she said, I want to wear the baggy jeans, I want to wear the crop top. लेकिन जब मैं घर से बाहर निकलती हूँ तो सब देखते हैं. तो मैं फिर एक जैकेट पहन लेती हूँ और एक स्टोल कर लेती हूँ. जब नेबरहुड से थोड़ा दूर जाती हूँ अपने मोहल्ले से, फिर वो उतार लेती हूँ. So this customer is actually not limited by mindset or by choice. They're limited by their neighborhood. I think this is, and we were solving for the wrong problem all this while. It is not limited by the catalog. So showing them a more conservative catalog and thinking this is what will go for them, I think that's the biggest mistake.
Wonderful.
That a lot of marketers make.
So you're also empowering them with
Exactly.
information and triggering their aspirations on, because
In fact, some of these cities we see the customers are equally fashionable as you may see in South Delhi or South Bombay. You just need to give them the environment to express themselves.
Okay. So trust in Snapdeal continues to be one of the biggest drivers in India's e-commerce also, and especially beyond metros. तो मुझे 2-3 चीजें बताओ आप, Achint. What are these, let's say, drivers of trust
Sure.
for a company? And it's not just obviously the quality and everything else,
Right.
but perhaps also the interaction with the customer.
Right.
Please.
I'll go back to something I learned at McKinsey.
Okay.
About building trust with clients. I think the same philosophy applies here also.
Right.
It's a very simple equation. It's a mathematical equation of trust. It goes as follows. It's trust is equal to credibility multiplied by reliability multiplied by intimacy divided by self-orientation. So credibility is, are you selling quality products and the right products, right trends? Reliability is, are you consistent in the experience you provide every time? Intimacy is, how well are you able to personalize your offering for the customer? How well you understand the customer, right? In our terms, I'm explaining it. And self-orientation, which should be negative and not there for the customer, is customers don't like to be adored, or they may not really want to be adored, but they hate to be fooled, right? So things like handling charges put at the cart as a surprise, a delivery fee not shown in the product price but put at the cart as a surprise. This is what customers hate. And we are against this sort of a mindset as an e-commerce. So our belief is absolutely honest pricing. What you see is what you get at the end at the cart also. There is nothing that gets added on as, these so-called hidden fees. And that is what I call as minimizing self-orientation as a brand, right? So these are some of the things and principles we have seen. Now, it is not easy, by the way. In the world of marketplace, you have to also take some punches when you do this. Particularly when it comes to quality, for example, right? So you are getting your merchandise from sellers who are in far nooks and corners of the country. They are having their own individual capacity, manufacturing capacity and setup. You can't go and control each factory.
Right.
At the end of the day, right? So what do? Use data. Use customer feedback.
Correct.
when a seller comes on our platform, after the first initial quality check, we don't open it up to every customer. We don't make them visible, their assortment visible to everyone. To a small set of customers to see how they are getting their feedback. If their feedback is positive, if they are able to sort of service the customer request in time and the right expectation, then we open up their inventory to more set of customers. Once it scales, we are very particular about the product ratings, the customer experience feedback coming through our customer care centers, and we have a very high threshold bar.
Okay.
Any seller who falls below that threshold gets delisted immediately from the platform.
Oh,
Automatic.
okay.
It's an algo. We don't even touch it, right? So our sellers know कि Snapdeal पे अगर quality खराब हो गई या experience खराब हो गया, कल हमारी inventory दिखेगी नहीं यहाँ पे. And that sort of creates a feedback engine automatically for sellers
That's
to keep
wonderful.
that minimum quality bar. That's the only way a marketplace can run with algos.
So you actually plug every loophole possible.
As much as possible, I would say.
Very much. And drive it with positivity.
Yes.
It's about
And they
delivering-
realize over time, right? Ki, "Yaar, this is only good for their business. Because
Correct,
then
correct.
otherwise you won't get that sort of repeat rates that I talked about.
And then that also percolates down into your entire staff, your field force, your everybody else across.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You know, so that's wonderful, wonderful. Achint, you've also been very, very creatively kind of driven, and you yourself said that at heart, and you know, you are a creative person, always driven by that. You make short films and everything else. So, you played a significant role in leveraging creator ecosystems earlier in your career as well. So, how differently does creator-led influence work amongst Bharat consumers compared to urban premium audiences? And has social commerce genuinely arrived in India at scale? I mean, from what you've told me about your whole experience of Snapdeal, I think it has. But still, andar ki baat batao. Meaning your perspective on
Yeah.
Bharat consumers that you are blessed to have by virtue of the great work Snapdeal is doing.
Yeah. No, Pawan, I think this is something which is also very close to my heart. The creator commerce ecosystem. I dabbled with it many years ago before it became what it is today, at the scale it is today. And I think to me, whether it is an urban customer or a premium customer or a Bharat customer, the creator economy influence is all pervasive, right? It's just that the choice of who you want, who you would get influenced by changes depending on who you are. But everybody is getting their own share of influence from someone in their circle. For a Bharat customer, the creators are actually Bharat creators, right? They're coming from the grassroots. They are creating content that is very relatable to the grassroots. And they are not just creating content for one brand, but many brands, which also makes them trustworthy. Because you don't see them promoting one brand, unlike a celebrity endorsement, where the customer is smart enough to understand कि इसको तो पैसे दिए होंगे, right? And therefore, let me not trust on the face of it. So while celebrities create a lot of positive recall, the creators, the influencers create a lot of trust and relatability, right? And that's what we have seen across markets in India, in regional languages, in local communities, people getting strongly influenced by. And it is becoming more and more user-generated now, more and more democratized. Anybody with a camera in any setting, and the more raw the setting, the more relatable it becomes.
Authentic also
the
it
more
becomes.
authentic it becomes. So authenticity is, I think, now going to the next level. It was always there, but I think authenticity is becoming people are actually pushing authenticity even harder now.
And practicing to be more authentic.
And practicing to be more authentic. Exactly, right? So creators have also become smart to create content in a way that they don't come across as selling something very clearly, right? So, so that's I think on the creator ecosystem. When we talk about social commerce, it's very interesting in India, and India has some clear distinctions when we look at a market like China or Southeast Asia. In India, I think what happened was from long times, customer has extremely been savvy, super savvy, right? And therefore, they don't get converted into a shopper just because you have said something. They have to do their own mental maths. They have to do their own judgment in their minds. And they also need end-to-end accountability and ownership on their purchase.
Correct.
So while social commerce, the social media platforms have become fantastic discovery and influencing tools, the purchase decision is happening on a marketplace. And the content and the cart haven't truly merged in India, right? So you will discover something, you like it, you take a snapshot, you save it, then you go to Google Lens and you figure it out which platform should I go and buy something similar looking. Or you go to the image search, and image search is pretty popular on Snapdeal also, and people pin their interesting looks, pin their products that they want, that they would have seen anywhere, and they search for it on a platform using image search. Now that's the other interesting part about this customer is they may not recall what do you call this thing, this trend or this product, but they know the imagery. So they want to use the imagery to search, right? And that is, I think, is a different version of the social commerce that has emerged in India. And I think it has its own merits because social platforms are wonderful in engaging and inspiring, while e-commerce platforms have to own the quality, the consistency, the width of assortment, and the purchase experience at the end of the day.
Excellent. So how remote markets consumer friendly is the Snapdeal app, the website, and also how strongly do you use WhatsApp as a communication awareness and purchase trigger kind of platform?
We are currently in almost 97% of the pin codes of this country.
97% of the pin codes of India.
So I think you could assume that it has the farthest reach of e-commerce in the country today, Snapdeal.
And that's not just awareness, that's also being able to service them.
I'm talking about serviceability only.
Wow.
Serviceability.
That's fantastic. How remote market consumers friendly is your app and the website, etc. of Snapdeal, and how strongly, if you do you use WhatsApp?
WhatsApp, yes, WhatsApp was a point. So WhatsApp we use very proactively. In fact, it's a core part of our customer relationship management engine. It's also one of the most effective ones amongst everything we do, but also has to be used most carefully. It's a personal space of the customer. So we use it with a lot of responsibility. But customers love to engage on WhatsApp. We get a lot of positive customer, negative customer feedback on WhatsApp. And especially when you're sending to a remote place, the order tracking on WhatsApp is extremely effective for the customer to see. So
Okay.
it is, for us, it's like our second app interface for the customer.
Oh, okay. Wonderful. And okay, let's look at the marketing and the media mix that you use.
Sure.
Obviously, for every campaign, different objectives, different kind of mediums and communication, etc. But when you look at the back of the 1 million plus markets and even smaller ones after that and beyond that, what are your most important, let's say, objectives of your campaigns themselves? Because years ago, Hootsuite did this big survey with some 3,200 global top marketers who were subscribing into their top tier services, and that's quite expensive. And they asked them, what are the one or two most important trends about your digital marketing behavior, spends, whatever, how you deploy it? And 82% of them said, this was 2019, not even now. They said that nearly half my budgets go into digital marketing,
Right.
one, and that was true 2019.
Right.
Secondly, whenever I go out with something as a campaign in digital, it's not anymore about just brand awareness or customer awareness.
Right.
It's about that for sure, plus a call to action to buy and customer acquisition.
Yeah.
So that's the way they were thinking then.
Yeah.
How do you deploy your digital and other marketing media mixes?
Yeah.
To what purpose? And how strong is perhaps CTV a part of it or not? Because that's the premium customer. So if you're looking at the back of Beyond, then it's a completely different mix. What do you use?
Yeah. So I think if I think first principles, the customer is not behaving very differently, even in the tier 3, tier 4 towns when it comes to, because see, who are we talking about? We're talking about someone who has the capability of making a product purchase online. Number one. Number two, we are talking of someone who is getting inspired by social media and is trend forward. Right. both these require the customer to be spending significant time digitally. And therefore, 100% of our marketing is digital, not even 50%. Right? So we are a pure play digital only marketeer as a company. And the reason it is the case is not because non-digital is not effective in its own ways, but because our marketing has to be extremely direct and frugal. We are a value company. We are extremely frugal about how much we spend, because every penny we save, we pass it back as a price advantage to our customers.
Oh, lovely.
So that's the principle of the company. And therefore,
Of the company called Snapdeal. You don't mention it often enough.
of the company Snapdeal. And I think this helps us, one, figure out and discover customers who are really seeking for trendiness, who are seeking for, the categories that we play in, which are also very digital first in a way, fashion, home decor, beauty. These are all digital first categories when it comes to buying. Second, I think because we use some of our direct customer marketing engines, whether it is our notifications, because we are a 90% app business, right? We are not a website business that has to spend money on an external platform to get people to your website, right? So because of the app dependency, a lot of natural repeat rates happen in the business, right? So therefore, our own notification engines, our own WhatsApp becomes a very powerful marketing tool for us as well.
Okay.
And I think this combination helps us sort of stay focused on targeting in the right way, and also then keeping the customers retained with us, largely through digital, I would say.
Achint, you've also seen, you mentioned Singapore and, the other South Asian markets. You've seen South Asian markets through your experiences with, Zalora, for instance.
Yeah.
So from a consumer behavior perspective, what similarities and differences stand out across India, that is Indian and Southeast Asian digital commerce ecosystems?
Yeah, it's a very interesting question, Pawan. Actually,
and you could give me a very long answer.
But I'll give you a short answer.
Yes.
Very short answer. I think there are more similarities than differences.
Wonderful.
My biggest takeaway from the 2.5 years I've spent in Southeast Asia, and we looked at 6 different markets of Southeast Asia, including, the likes of Indonesia, which are closer to India, to the likes of Singapore and Hong Kong, which are farther from India in terms of affluence. The common theme of a large share of customers being value conscious is omnipresent, which is the reason why the biggest competitors of branded e-commerce players in those markets are the likes of Taobao, Shopee, Temu.
Okay.
Selling a lot of unbranded merchandise, but at affordable prices.
And of good quality.
Right? So this, I think, was my eye-opener personally, why I believed so much more in the Snapdeal opportunity when it came to me.
Lovely.
In fact, I had been in India only. I wouldn't have realized how big this could be, having seen it grow in Southeast Asia.
And you've vindicated the principles, opportunity given to you.
Yes.
I mean, such growth, 83% of repeat business. And that's also, 83% is the back of beyond markets, the tier 3 and 4.
Yes, 80% plus.
2, 3. Yeah. So when you look at the next 5 years, it's easy to just say, toss a 5-year frisbee to you, carelessly and say, now, next 5 years. Look at the next 5 years of Indian e-commerce growth. What changes do you believe will most surprise India's business, startup and marketing ecosystems?
I think what would surprise everybody the most is how quickly AI will penetrate in solving the kind of problems that we thought were unsolvable in the past. There'll be many changes, but I think artificial intelligence to me will be the biggest transformation that we will see in e-commerce particularly. It's already solving a host of complex problems today when it comes to returns management, frauds management, customer quality management. What will unlock in the midterm is the customer experience from an experiential AI perspective. So the offline experience of being able to try a lot of outfits, try a lot of looks, can become much faster on online platforms with experiential AI. And the other piece is the conversational AI. Is you don't I think the journeys of typing, clicking, and going through each product to be able to understand and buy will transform to a lot more of AI supported, AI enabled conversational search, in my view. And that would be a far more native for a lot of vernacular customers at scale, which I think would unlock the next 300 million customers. So the 200 to 250 million customers that we have gained in last 20 years in e-commerce, imagine this number doubling in the next 5 years.
Wow.
That is the opportunity we are sitting on.
Super geometrical scale.
It is. And thanks to, I think, a few big unlocks we've seen, whether it is the financial access, the fintech unlock, the logistics unlock that we have seen in this country, and the social awareness unlock. All three of them coming together.
Wonderful conversation so far, Achint. Let's now do a few short takeaway questions for our audiences, right? So answer these questions coming up as briefly as you can. They cover a wide range of topics, and as you will see. So make it a rapid fire if you wish. So my first question is: what is the single biggest misconception urban India still has about Bharat consumers?
That Bharat consumers are less aspirational than them.
Or perhaps have less money than they do.
Less money they may have, a large section of them, but definitely not less on aspiration.
Yeah, and they're willing to, let's say, ascribe a decent part of whatever money they have.
Yes. As a percentage,
yes,
it will be a larger percentage that they will dedicate towards fulfilling that aspiration.
So that willingness to spend is there.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Achint, is affordability in India really about cheapness, or is it increasingly about smart value and aspiration?
India is a fascinating market. I think both will coexist in this country, even though the smart, intelligent, aspirational shopper will go disproportionately faster than the price-conscious only shopper.
And will inspire the others to follow in her or his footsteps also.
Which is why it's a flywheel of growth.
And it's growing.
It's growing, yeah.
Wonderful. Which Indian town or city during Bharat Manthan surprised you the most, and why?
Rather than one town or city, I think what surprised me is the common thread of the value-conscious mindset that I saw right from Delhi and Gurgaon to a tier 2 town like Coimbatore.
Oh.
So that common thread, I think, was my biggest takeaway.
Wonderful. So what is your advice to marketers wanting to emulate your success, your company's success?
I think with all humility, we have a lot of ground to cover still, I must say.
Sure. I mean, but nevertheless, you covered much more than most. So tell me, in those markets.
I would just say, I think as for anyone thinking about differentiation in their own field, very important to spend time in deeply understanding your customer, understanding why you're serving them, and once you have figured out a product market fit, then just sticking to it. It's very easy today to get distracted with so much going around in the ecosystem. But what's, I would say, Snapdeal has been doing well is to just stick to a customer segment and then going deep after that.
Right. You mentioned social commerce. But tell me quickly, has social commerce genuinely arrived in Bharat, India, or is it still overhyped?
Social commerce has arrived from a discovery and influence standpoint, but the content and the cart integration is still early days. So both will continue to operate independently with marketplaces working hand in hand with the social media platforms. And that is, I think, is the journey India is on currently.
So is that content and cart integration sort of slower than in the bigger cities because of a lack of or not having the propensity to impulse buy in your market?
Not because of impulse buying propensity, but because of possibly lack of trust.
Okay.
And I think that for a early digital adopter, of course, that trust is lower versus someone who has been shopping for 15, 20 years online.
Takes time coming,
yeah.
And you are inspiring it with your principles and the way you actually operate in your systems, in your markets. I mean, you just delist a supplier who's got too many of those, lower than your high threshold kind of rankings. So which is very good, and that really sets the example. What is the one thing, Achin, that Indian marketers need to immediately stop assuming about non-metro consumers?
To stop tagging them as non-metro and looking down upon them in a certain stereotypical way. I think the mindset of the customer is what matters the most. And that is, I think, again, pervasive across all sorts of cities, not just something is different in metros versus non-metro sites.
Well said, well said. Complete this sentence for us, Achint. The future of Indian e-commerce will belong to brands that
deeply understand their customers and serve them with consistency.
Wonderful, wonderful. Achint, this has been a fascinating conversation, very, very useful insights into how Bharat consumers and value-led commerce are evolving in India. Some great guidance there. I really enjoyed our conversation. Thanks for your time and for all the insight. What did you think of two things? One, our chat today here, and two, about what we do at MediaBrief.com.
I actually really enjoyed the conversation. In fact, you got me to say a lot of things that were running at the back of my mind in terms of these consumer insights. So had fun sharing it.
Thank you.
I also loved this initiative of MediaBrief.com. I think in this world of short-form content frenzy, sometimes these long-form conversations help unpack a lot of complexity and bring out some of these useful insights for businesses, for entrepreneurs.
Yes, which you were very generous.
I watched your other podcasts also and got a lot of interesting nuances from there to learn from.
So
I hope this episode also will be helpful to a few people for sure.
I'm sure it will. And thank you for a wonderful chat. I look forward to meeting you again and hopefully doing something like this again at a later date when you have more trends and more things to report to your friends in the marketplace. And, but really great food for thought for professionals who trust in our show, who tune into it. And it's because of people like you who feature on the show with me. So thank you very much indeed, Achint. And as is my format, thanks once again to Anjali Berry, Sakshi Ratava, and Shweta Jain of AdFactors PR, and young Saksham, who's in your team here at Copcom. I believe he's also a wonderful content guy. So,
yes,
this creative CEO and a good content Copcom person. You're in good comms hands. So, Achint, thank you ever so much.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much, Pawan.
So that was Achint Sethia, CEO of Snapdeal. Young, informative, so many insights from him. I enjoyed this conversation and I hope you did too. Till we meet again in another episode of MVP The Master's Voice podcast, this is your host and friend Pawan R. Chawla saying, take care, stay safe, bye-bye.